Now it's time to talk about R&D strategy. And we will start that by looking at two clips. First, we're going to look at R&D in life science industry. That will be the first clip. And then we're going to look at ideas for innovation the Google way. So two clips, and then you'll get back to me here. That was those two clips. Now we're going into new product development. Going to talk about how firms make that go about. Here is one. Going to talk about new product development. And I will start with an example. I'm going to talk about the Newton message pad. And this was an early entrant into the personal digital assistant market. It was exceptional in many aspects. It had an advanced chip for superior processing performance. It had object-oriented operating systems. It had an open license for the architecture to enable and encourage rapid and widespread adaptation by other vendors. The weight and size and battery life was better than many competitors, but it was too large to keep in a pocket. And the screen was too small to use for business people. And early problems with handwriting features made people think it was rubbish. So the Newton message pad was not a success on the market. But how should you think when you want your new product to be a success on the market then? Well, I can just give you a few bullet points. It will not make you a master in this, but you will have something to think about at least. For new product development, you need to try to maximize the fit with the customer requirement. And the Newton message pad had not, because they had not kind of talked perhaps with people and realized that, okay, but we want to be able to keep this in our pocket. So you need a clear sense of the desired feature. What do people want? Perhaps they don't know that themselves, but you need to understand it anyway. And you have to you should not overestimate the willingness to pay. They might not be willing to pay a lot for something. And it can be difficult resolving heterogeneity in customer demands. Different client segments might want different things. Perhaps you then should target just one of these segments, or make different versions for the different segments. Try to handle it somehow. Another tip is to minimize the development cycle time and try to build firm loyalty so that people stick with your thing and that you can kind of offer the new thing to them so they can stick with your brand. They don't have to go to someone else. And many development costs are directly related to time. And you want to fully amortize the fixed cost related to development before the generation of that product, that version of the product, becomes obsolete. So you remember you had a lot of fixed cost in the beginning, and you want to get that money back before you have to launch a new product. Okay? So it's good to be early on the market. And it's also good to quickly get feedback and to be able to upgrade your product, because you'll get customer feedback once you have launched your product. And try to be aware of quality, customer perception, and pressure on the development team, because Firstly, you cannot launch something that has poor quality. Then your reputation will go down and people might not buy your next version, even though that is a lot better because they remember the first version. That is the customer perception. They will kind of think that, well, they develop rubbish things, I'm not going to buy that from them. And also be aware of the pressure on the development team. If there is a tight schedule and you want to launch the product quickly, then the development team might be stressed out. You cannot put too much pressure on them. You need to kind of help them out then if you want something to be ready to be launched at a certain time. In Schilling's book, she talks about sequential and partially parallel development. It's quite easy, actually, these two concepts. Here's the sequential process. You start with some kind of opportunity identification, and then after that is done, you start with concept development. Once that is done, you start with product design. And when that is done, you start with process design. After that is done, you start with commercial production. And this would be time on the x-axis. Then, in partly parallel processes, you try to make this go quicker. So you have the same building blocks here, the same activities, but you see they are partly in parallel. Before the opportunity identification is done, you start with concept development. And before that is done, you start with product design. And before product design is done, you start with process design. And then some commercial production. But you see here, there's not a partly parallel process. And it's important to involve people in the process when you develop something. And that is something that we're trying to illustrate by having a design thinking exercise in this course. In one of the workshops, you will try design thinking, and then you involve someone in the process from the start. Someone that we will call your client. Someone that you are trying to solve a problem for.